Hello to all you in YouTube world. My name is Scarlett, and I'm an atheist and skeptic in progress. I like to contemplate matters of life and philosophy, especially what gives us meaning and purpose. If you're like me, you'll have seen an increase in videos supposedly directed at atheists, and you might be wondering why. Or maybe like me, you suspect what is really going on. You have lots of questions for atheists, varying numbers of questions, sometimes more questions, and sometimes there are answers to questions for atheists, like I've done here on this channel. There are testimonies. I used to be an atheist, sometimes in a car, like in this one. And then, obviously, there are response videos by atheists to the I used to be an atheist meme. And a lot of it looks really well done. Here's this channel with really nice colors, probably really nicely done video, and then this very inspirational woman standing there looking at the ocean. How I found God. Atheist spelled wrong. Well, what are you going to do? And Matt Walsh sitting in a car, getting mad that atheists actually are trying to express their opinions. It's okay for Christians to express their opinions, but, atheists are just trying to steal your hope or something. I don't know. Well, it's a good video by Sirsic. And of course you have your generic preaching against atheism and apologetics that is anti-atheism, all kinds of stuff like that. So what is all this interest in atheism on the part of Christians and Muslims, to be frank, but I'm in America, it's mainly Christians. Is it a serious inquiry? Are theists really concerned about atheist souls? I don't think much of this content is truly directed at atheists. Some theists producing the content might think that that is their goal, but I hypothesize that a lot of what theists produce, and let's face it, Christians mainly, again, I'm talking about the US, this is aimed at other theists, trying to keep them in line, in the pew, tithing to churches or donating. It exists, in other words, to reinforce belief. Testimonies can be a bit harder to suss out, but in many cases there are tells in the individual story that are confusing secularism with atheism. It's one of my beefs about these. They confuse the fact that we want a secular society with there being an atheistic society, and that's a whole other video. They often just mean that their family didn't attend church, or they didn't think about religion all that much. But their conversion is often sparked by something kind of minor. Even if they were atheists, they clearly weren't any kind of skeptical atheists. The preaching and supposed warnings are especially so lacking in any kind of research or outreach to atheists, it's laughable. It's stereotypes of what atheists are and what they believe. So why would it be the case that theists turn their attention to atheists? Well, if you've been looking at polling data on religiosity in the US, you'll have heard about the rise of the nones, an increase in people declaring themselves unaffiliated. I'll link to this Pew Research piece that I'll be discussing. Atheists are the new scary boogeyman, in other words. And so we have this piece modeling the future of religion in America. If recent trends in religious switching continue, Christians could make up less than half of the US population within a few decades. The article reads, "The decline of Christianity and the rise of the nones may have complex causes and far-reaching consequences for politics, family life, and civil society. However, theories about the root causes of religious change and speculation about its societal impact are not the focus of this report. The main contribution of this study is to analyze recent trends and show how the U.S. religious landscape could shift if they continue." And more from this piece. The center estimates that in 2020, about 64% of Americans, including children, were Christian. People who are religiously unaffiliated, sometimes called religious nones, accounted for 30% of the U.S. population. Adherents of all other religions, including Jews, Muslims, Hindus, and Buddhists, total about 6%. Depending on whether religious switching continues at recent rates, speeds up, or stops entirely, the projections show Christians of all ages shrinking from 64% to between a little more than half, 54%, and just above one-third, 35% of all Americans by 2070. Over that same period, nones would rise from the current 30% to somewhere between 34% and 52% of the U.S. population. I think we also need to clarify that the nuns don't really indicate atheists. They're just not religiously affiliated. They could be spiritual, they could believe in Jesus, they're all kinds of things, but they just don't belong to a church. And that might trouble some Christians for some reason, or they might see this as a new prey, new people to bring into their church and get them tithing. Now, the piece also defines religious switching, which could be described as religious conversion, it says, but it is defined in this report as a change between the religion in which a person was raised in childhood and their present religious identity in adulthood. Current rates of switching are based on responses from more than 15,000 adults to two questions posed in a 2019 Pew Research Center survey. In what religion, if any, were you raised? And what is your present religion, if any? In many cases, switching does not happen in a single moment. Religious nuns often describe their disaffiliation as a gradual process, and some may never have felt a strong connection to our religious identity, even though they describe themselves as having been raised in a faith tradition. Know for myself that getting to atheism was a gradual process, very slow, with no particular event triggering it, so I definitely identify with that particular thought. Now for the trends. The nuns will approach majority by 2070 if recent switching continues at the same pace. And so we can see all of these different projections from today of where people would be and Christianity's role in society. So focusing a little bit more on the projections, as you can see, 52% without limits, 48% with limits, 41% steady switching, 34% no switching. And it's nice that they do these different trends because there's no telling what people will do. It's nice to think, for myself as somebody who wants a secular society, that these will continue, but trends don't always continue. And a closer look at the scenarios, the rising disaffiliation without limits. In each new generation, a growing share of Christians switch out before they turn 30, while a shrinking share of nuns switch in. No cap is imposed. Rising disaffiliation with limits. Each new generation, a growing share of Christians switch out before they turn 30, while a shrinking share of nuns switch in. But the switching rate is capped to prevent the share of Christians who leave the faith from rising above 50%. Steady switching, movement into and out of Christianity, remains stable at recently observed rates. That is, in each new generation, 31% of Christians become religiously unaffiliated before they turn 30, and 21% of unaffiliated people become Christian. And the last one is no switching. This scenario imagines no person in America has changed or will change their religion after 2020. Like I said, I'll link to the report so you can look at it and think about these trends if you wish. But really, the news is, and has been for a while, that Christianity is in decline and the nuns are on the rise. So I think Christians see a threat to their beliefs. And you can also connect this to the idea that we have an internet to exchange ideas and we can find each other. People can see that some of their superstitious beliefs are all hogwash. They can find people enjoying Halloween or Harry Potter without being afraid of literal demons. And they can see gay people living joyful and fulfilling lives, and no deity has brought punishment on our nation. So what does all of this theist-based atheist content accomplish? Well, the main goal is to keep people in their specific religion tithing and giving money to Christian YouTubers and other vendors of Christ. Much of Christian output is about getting people to belong to a specific flavor of Christianity and donating or tithing to that cause. It's big money. In both questions for atheist videos and sermons against atheism, I notice suggestions that atheists just haven't thought through their positions. I mean, maybe some haven't. But there are loads of atheist videos and blogs out there discussing how thoughtful atheists came to their current situation. The fact that these theists assume that tells me that they aren't interested in real atheists, but in atheism as a concept. In particular, they want to convince themselves and others that theists are the ones who have really thought through their positions, and atheists are just clueless souls out there upset because God didn't grant them their prayer pony or whatever. Theists thus can pat themselves on the back that they have the right position, unlike those silly atheists. And don't get me started on that "the fool hath said in his heart" bullshit. The attempt to make atheism sound silly continues in their version of What Science Says. Whether it's the ridiculous assertion that atheists believe humans came from a rock or that the universe was caused by a literal explosion, theists make science seem stupid and foolish. Christians have this elegant answer: God did it. It explains everything, and it just makes so much sense if you think about it, whereas atheists haven't. Now, of course, we're back to the confusion of secularism with atheism. I mean, scientists of all religions and none do exist. And of course, there's the evergreen suggestion that atheists are evil or just want to sin or what have you, because how could you even have morality if you don't have God? But I repeat, I don't think any of these explanations are for atheists. I think the current situation with the rise of the nuns has religious people feeling under threat, and they are trying to keep people in, trying to make atheism sound like something it isn't. If theists were really interested in converting atheists, they would actually try to figure out what atheists believe. I just don't see that kind of interest, unless it's gotcha questions for atheists. But in any case, it's not a thoughtful engagement. Even this conflation of secularism with atheism is part of the shtick. If theists see that secular society works just fine, if they thought they could find a moral system that works without religion, and that we will all be fine without belief in a deity, they might find themselves joining in. Basically, the nuns are a real threat. Atheists and secularists are making real progress in our society. And what will all those theists do if they have to find a real job instead of making stuff up about what Bible verses mean or how mean atheists are? Well, it's a head scratcher. Well, that's all for me. I have been Scarlett, giving my life meaning and purpose by making this video. If you liked it, you can, YouTube like it and all that kind of stuff. Make a comment in the comment section below. See you in the next one. Bye for now.